Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Yeah, thank you very much for turning up around this evening. It's a great pleasure. I quite understand every one of us has tight schedule, but for you to still have time to be here, I really appreciate that. Just a quick check. I forgot to ask the safety anyway. Let's look around for fire safety. If you hear any alarm, please just find your way down to the car park side. Some people will be leaving while the event is going on because they've got council meeting, so they need to be there. So don't let us be distracted with that. Let's just continue. It's a great pleasure to have you here. I'm Olalekan Odedeyi, popularly known as Ola. I'm the BME officer for Middlesbrough Constituency Labour Party. Obviously, what I'm trying to do is kind of building bridges, breaking barriers, and to stand for the Labour members, however, for the entire community at large. So tonight, basically what we intend to do is one of the projects we've started since February. Today is going to focus on local policing, UK law, family and immigration law, to enlighten our people and for everyone to know what and how to integrate successfully in the society. While the event is going on, there will be some photographs taken, there will be recording. So if you are not willing to be part of this, kindly signify so that we know how to kind of adjust towards that. I would like to start by making some brief introduction. Tonight we've got different organizations, individual groups, and local groups as well. So I'll first start with one of our speakers, which is Alastair Simpson. So it's the, Alastair is the Chief Superintendent Officer, and he works with Cleveland Police. He's the Neighbourhood Policing and Partnership in charge. The next speaker I will invite, because I want everybody to be here, is going to be a kind of education, enlightenment, training, speech, and questions, because the topic is question time with local police. How do we build that trust? How do we build that relationship, in particular, the BME community perspective? So I would like to welcome our second speaker, which is Mr. Barry Coppinger. Is a police and crime commissioner for Cleveland here. If you don't mind, could you please just... We also have a solicitor from London. His name is Mr. Ese Adams-Aliu. He works with Adams-Aliu. Yeah.
Thank you.
While we are starting the program, they will continue with the introduction. And we are still waiting for one solicitor from Durham, but fortunately for us, we are also blessed with local solicitor firm, which also they are well recognized, and they are one of the rated criminal family law solicitor. They're based here in Middlesbrough. From PJ Watson, I would like to welcome Gemma Watson, who is the practice manager. If you don't mind, you want to join here, and also to be accompanied by Kandola. She's the head of family law, and she's also a representative of BME community. Pamela, do you want to come over? So while the other people are coming, I will let you know. So I would like to open this by handing over to the people that's always behind me, that show me where to go and how to step within the community. And it's no other person than Councillor Margaret Water. She's the Middlesbrough Constituency Labour Party chair. Councillor, do you want like to have opening remarks, please?
Hello, good afternoon, welcome. Good afternoon. Lovely to see you here. I am Margaret Walters. I have the chair of Middlesbrough Constituency Labour Party, and I have been supporting Ola, I suppose we all have, in his mission to engage with the black and minority ethnic community and to make connection with the services that can support our all our communities in the town. And that is absolutely critical. Integration, engagement, working together to make this town for everyone a better place to be. Somewhere we can all have access to the services that are available to us, so we know what we can reasonably expect, and we know how to behave and support each other in achieving that. So it's great that you've come along. I hope everybody's going to talk freely and openly and listen carefully to what each other are saying. So have a lovely evening.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. When you see me on social media, you should know I have some people that cover me off. So the next thing is to go to a very small 2-3 minutes slideshow of video of Everyone Matters program put together by Cleveland Police. But unfortunately, you don't need to go. There is no internet. Unfortunately, we cannot play it. But those of you that you've put down your email, we are going to send out to you. And even one of the presentations today is part of it. So if I'm allowed to share the slide, I will let you know. You will seek permission from him today. So with that, in the absence of that, that will lead us to the first speaker for tonight. Like I've mentioned earlier, is Chief Superintendent Alastair Simpson. He will be talking on crime, stop and search, and your legal rights to strengthen you. It's not everything you heard you go by. You have some knowledge of it, and you know how to deal with that in a constructive and critical way. So join me to welcome Alastair Simpson.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Alastair Simpson. I'm the Chief Superintendent in Cleveland Police, and probably more importantly, my role is as Head of Neighbourhood Policing for the force. So I'm responsible for the way in which we deploy neighbourhood resources across the force, and neighbourhood policing is at the heart of what we do, having local officers who are engaged with local communities and understand and get to grips with local problems. I'm going to talk to you tonight about a few different things. I'm going to talk a little bit about the Cleveland Police Force area. I'm going to talk a bit about some of the challenges that we face a day in the life of Cleveland Police. I'm going to mention very briefly the fact we've got a new chief and the direction of travel. And then I'm going to talk a bit about some fairly contentious subjects nationally. So I'm going to talk a bit about stop and search and hopefully try and explain a bit about the stop and search legislation and why we employ stop and search. And then I'm going to move on to talk a little bit about hate crime and hate incidents, about what they are and about how they report, and then about some of the trends we're seeing around hate crime. And then a little bit around what to do if you're not happy with the police, in terms of whether or not it's about an investigation or about complaints, or the way you're being treated, what to do if you're not happy with the service that you're being offered. Lastly, we're going to talk a little bit about the makeup of the force, and also an opportunity, hopefully, speaking to you tonight, to try and encourage more people to think about a career in Cleveland Police in some way, shape or form. And also I'll cover some other ways in which you can help us on our journey into the future, thinking about ways in which you can help us as a police force change the way we operate so we are more focused on community needs. So to start off with, these are the areas we cover. So we're in Middlesbrough at the minute, but actually Cleveland Police covers from Hartlepool in the north to Redcombe Cleveland in the south and out some of the farthest reaches of Stockton-on-Tees. 4 different local authority areas. The figures from I think the 2011 census, so that's 570,000, but I think actually we think the overall population has gone up since then, so it's a bit more than that. In terms of a day in the life, that's quite a busy slide. You probably won't be able to read it, but I'll just maybe pull out a few things. So we deal with 637 different incidents every day. So sometimes we get more than 1,000 people phoning us, but 637 different incidents we deal with every day. Of that, 140 of those are reported crimes. Of that, 3 are reported hate crimes. Of those 637 incidents, 262 of those are 999 calls. So potentially got 262 emergencies every day. We also have 10 missing people, often very vulnerable people. So they get reported to us. We need to invest immediate resource in actually going to try and find somebody that's gone missing that's at risk of harm. So we've got that to deal with every day. And we normally do around about 46 arrests a day out of those 140 crimes, and we do around 3 stop and searches every day across Cleveland Police. Just pulling in some of the other stuff that we do, we've got specialist resources dealing with safeguarding children, protection of vulnerable adults, domestic abuse. We've got teams that look at serious and organised crime. We've got teams that look at the drug trafficking, and then we've had to invest in new areas, things like cybercrime as well. So we've got quite a diversity of Cleveland Police, but probably the police officers you will see most often, we've got a section of officers we call our response officers. So primarily they are the ones that are dealing with the 637 incidents a day. And then we've got neighbourhood officers. So neighbourhood officers' job is to work with you as communities, get to know you as communities, understand your problems, and work with local communities and local partners to solve local problems. And then we have our detectives. So our detectives have got higher levels of training in terms of investigation of crime. So more serious crimes or more impactful crimes will be dealt with by trained detectives. Just a note on the sort of the right-hand side view on the slide. Since 2012, it's actually gone down further now. 1,536 officers we had in 2012. Now we've got well under 1,300. So we are dealing with increasing demand in a context of much reduced workforce. So we are constantly struggling to keep pace and finding new ways to try and hopefully prevent crime and disorder occurring, and also find the most efficient way of dealing with the ways with the issues that are presented to us. In terms of proposed transformation, the new Chief Constable has come in and has got a new approach, and probably the things I'll pick out most clearly are our objectives. Objectives of the police don't change massively, but you might see a change in language. But what are the police about? So the police are about preventing and reducing crime and antisocial behaviour and the wider demand on the police service, which is things like protection of people and safeguarding. Securing a trusted, quality and efficient police service, with trusted being at the core of that, because if we don't have the trust of communities, then everything else becomes more difficult for us. Protecting the most vulnerable in society and putting victims, witnesses and communities at the heart of what we do. So that's what we as a police force are about, and on the right hand side are the values. So this is the way we should be going about our business. So you should come across police officers, police staff, specials, volunteers that have integrity, impartiality, transparency and a real belief in public service. So stop search. As I've said, stop search can be quite contentious. It's certainly contentious nationally, and has caused real divisions between communities in the police in some parts of the country. Essentially, stop search legislation gives police officers the authority to stop someone in the street and detain them for the purpose of a search. But they can only do that, we can only do that, if we have reasonable grounds to suspect that that person is carrying prohibited articles, is carrying drugs, or is carrying stolen items. So essentially, stolen property, weapons, or drugs. So why do we have it? This power's been around a long time. This power is a power for public good. This power, the power of stop search, is to prevent and detect crime, and it's to keep people safe. So if we get a report that somebody's carrying a knife, we've got the... So if we get a report that somebody's carrying a knife, we can respond to that, find out if that's the case or not, and if that is the case, we can remove the knife off the street and protect the public. If we get a report that somebody's stolen something from a shop, we can use this power, you know, to try and stop that person, find out if it is them, find out if they've got the stolen articles. If it is them, we can arrest them. If it's not them, we can let them go on their way. The legislation comes from Section 1 of the Police and Criminal Evidence Act, but also under Section 23 of the Misuse of Drugs Act. It says similar things. It basically says, do we have reasonable grounds to suspect that somebody has something on them that is unlawful for them to carry? So stolen property, weapons or drugs. And we also have a power to use reasonable force in order to carry out a search. Now, the vast majority of stop searches don't involve any use of power by the police, but that power does exist. And as a simple example, if, for example, we get a report from numerous members of the public, you know, that there's a tall white male, about 40 years old, wearing black t-shirt, black trousers, walking around Newport with a knife, then if I was outside that gate out there and somebody came across me, they might think, well, actually, police officer thinks that person matches that description. You know, we've got lots of reports that he's carrying a knife. Actually, we need to search that person. Now, police officers have to think, when they're undertaking that search, they have to think about their safety, they have to think about the safety of the person that they're searching, and they have to think about the safety of the public. So actually, it would be perfectly reasonable, if they had the reasonable grounds to suspect that I was carrying a knife, it would be perfectly reasonable of them to think, well, actually, would you mind if we're going to put some handcuffs on you for the purpose of the search? So they might handcuff me, and then they might search me, and then if they don't find anything, then they'll unhandcuff me and let me go. But they might handcuff me if they've got grounds to think, actually, for the purpose of public safety, for the purpose of the police officer safety, for the safety of the person that's being searched, they can justify it, then they are allowed to use reasonable force to carry out that search. So in terms of, well, I thought I had some examples there. So probably just a couple of examples. So I've given you one. So people might get a description. We might get somebody saying, tall white male in Newport is carrying a knife, wearing black clothes. You know, then there would be a grounds to search me. Other examples are if we get a shop in the Lincoln precinct. If a shop phones up and says, we've just had somebody steal an iPhone. You know, it was a black male wearing a red jacket and blue jeans. Now, if police officers attended there within 5 minutes or so and came across somebody matching that description, apparently concealing something, then it would be appropriate for them to stop that person, to speak to them, and carry out a stop search to confirm or disprove that they're the person that is reported by the shop to have stolen the property. So that would be the purpose of the search. It's actually it's an alternative to an arrest in some ways, because if you're not quite sure, potentially if there's a few people around, you know, and it's a way of actually stopping somebody, and you've got the grounds to search somebody, but if you don't find anything, then essentially you've shown they're not the person, and there's no need to further detain that person. But it's another example. We can do it on intelligence as well. So we have had times in Middlesbrough in the past where, if you take probably the area just north of here, a collection of sort of 4 or 5 streets around Parliament Road, we've had gangs of young teenagers on bikes that have been concealing things in their bikes and going around stealing things from cars, breaking into cars and stealing things, and the sort of the hammers and the screwdrivers and things like that they're using to break into the cars, they've been concealing in the bikes. So we've had good intelligence at certain times of the day, on certain days, that actually this group of males between sort of 16 and 20 years old on bikes, you know, is out there with the purpose of committing crime. So that would be an intelligence basis for us. If actually we saw somebody matching that description, that would give us reasonable grounds to stop and search that person for the purpose of finding out if they do or don't have any prohibited articles on them. If they don't, then there's no further police power to do anything. If they do, then they might be arrested. But the purpose of the power is to establish whether or not that's the case. Looking at the figures, these are the number of stop searches by ethnic ethnicity. So on the left-hand side for you is Asian or Asian British, then black or black British, Chinese or other ethnic group, mixed, and white. And obviously that shows probably, I wouldn't say disproportionate, but it shows a higher number of searches, certainly for black or black British. But I want to give you some context in terms of that, because that higher number of searches amounts to 5 searches between January and June this year, 5 searches over 6 months. You know, and because it's such small numbers, then whilst it's 1.58 per 1,000 population, if it was 3 searches, it would be less than 1 per 1,000 population. So we're not talking, you know, we're talking about 1 search per month. So hopefully that will sort of calm any fears that there is a disproportionate focus. Also, it's worth you asking the question, given that this is a preventative tool and should be a targeted tool, it's worth looking at, well, what's the extent of searches that are successful? You wouldn't expect all of the searches to be successful, because if we knew that you were carrying it, then we would have to arrest you. There'd be no need for the stop search. So you wouldn't expect all the searches to be successful, but you would expect a reasonable amount to be successful if it's based on good information and reasonable grounds for suspicion. And this shows the percentage sort of over the course of this year. So the green bit is no further action following the search, and the yellow, which sort of fluctuates between sort of 20 and 35% of the searches, is where police action was taken as a result of the search. So in essence, we found something during the search. And we compare really well with other areas of the country in terms of that. Across that 6-month period, we've taken action in about 30% of cases. So in about 30% of cases, we found something as a result of the search, which tends to support the reasonable grounds, and that's more than Northumbria, Greater Manchester and Merseyside. I've also put this side up, and I will share the slides so you can have a look at them in greater detail in your own time. This shows the geography of where we do the stop searches, it shows the time, and it shows the demographics of the people that we're stopping. So what it shows is that largely the people we're stopping and searching are males between the ages of 18 and 40. And we stop most of them in Newport, followed by the central area of Middlesbrough, followed by Stockton Town Centre. And the predominant time period is in the evening. And what I would draw your attention in terms of that is if I put a graph up there about when and where does crime get committed in Cleveland, and what's our information about what the suspects are, that would tell you that most of our crime in Cleveland happens in the wards of Newport Central and Stockton Town Centre. Most of it happens in the evening, and most of the suspects are white males between the ages of 18 and 40, which again is hopefully some data that shows that the people that we are choosing to stop and search, because it's a choice by a police officer to stop and search somebody, the people we are choosing to stop and search are reflective of the general crime trends that we have across Cleveland. There's a couple more examples, but I think I've covered some examples. So, probably what's more importantly for me is not, well, it is important that police officers stop and search and have lawful grounds to do that. They've got the reasonable grounds. But it's also about the way that they treat people when they stop and search people. So this is what a good stop search looks like. Officers should be courteous, officers should explain the process, and officers should manage people's expectations. You are entitled, the police officers should tell you their name and the police station that they work from. They should tell you what it is they're expecting to find. They've only got the grounds to do it if they have reasonable grounds to suspect you are carrying drugs, weapons, stolen property. So they should be telling you what they expect to find. They should explain to you the reasons why they are stop searching. So it might be your behaviour in terms of, they feel that some of your behaviour is suspicious. It might be information that's received through control room or intelligence. It might be a combination of factors. It might be sort of things that put together give them that reasonable grounds to suspicion. But they should be able to give you a coherent explanation of why it is that they've chosen to stop and search you. They should explain the legal grounds for doing that, whether it's PACE or whether it's Misuse of Drugs Act. And they should also explain that you're entitled to a copy of the search and how you can get a copy of the search. fundamentally, and it's like a lot of the exercise of police powers. The police in this country, have powers to do things that involve probably doing things that people might not like being done to them. Powers of search, powers of arrest, power to come in your house, but that can only be done in accordance with the law. And even where those powers exist, we have to do it right. We have to do it with respect. We have to do it courteously, and we have to give people explanations about what we're doing. Moving on to hate crime. There's the definition of hate crime up there. Probably two constituent elements of it. First of all, that there is a crime, so there is a criminal offence, and secondly, that somebody perceives that to be motivated by hate. We also have hate incidents, which we also record, very, very similar, except a hate incident is an incident that doesn't amount to a crime under the law. But we collect data on both of them. Phil Morris from our Communities and Partnerships Department, he is charged with collecting the data and understanding where hate crime is occurring, how much of it's occurring, where the trends are, what's going on. And we have means within our systems to capture when people phone us up and report hate crime. So there are various different ways to make a report. You can come in person at a police station. You can report hate crime or hate incidents at a third-party reporting centre. The Newport Community Hub is a third-party reporting centre, so you can come here to do it. You can speak to a community champion, and you'll find details of community champions at the third-party reporting centres. You can phone us on 101. 101 is the number you get to phone the police 24 hours a day. So if you phone 101, you can speak to us and you can report a hate crime or a hate incident. There's also a national hate crime helpline, and there's means of doing it online as well. But we point out, if you're reporting something that is an emergency, you must phone 999. So this is the graph, which in simple terms shows hate crime going up from 2012 to now. Where actually, there's a few reasons behind that. Some of them are positive, some of them aren't. We have seen spikes. We saw a spike after the Brexit referendum. So we saw an increase in hate crime after the Brexit referendum. So that's not a positive thing, but that hopefully has come down a bit since then. We do see spikes of hate crime when there's been significant national terrorist attacks. We've seen, following that, we've seen spikes in hate crime. And whenever there is a significant national terrorist attack, you will see communication from Cleveland Police that calls for calm in the community, calls for the community to pull together, and also really encourages people, if they have become victims of hate crime or hate incidents, encourages people to come forward. And we've had some fantastic convictions, following some of those incidents. When there's been local hate incidents, we've got to grips with people quickly and got them convicted and got them good sentences as a result of that. The other reason why that might go up, which is the one that is more positive, is because there's more confidence in reporting, because we've opened up channels of reporting through the third-party reporting centres, and because there's more confidence to come and report to us, because people have positive experiences, tell people that it is worth reporting hate crime, that something will be done, and then more people report it. And then we build a bigger picture of what's going on out there, and we're a better place to do something about it and make sure that we invest the right resource in doing it. So third-party reporting centres, we do acknowledge some people don't want to speak to the police directly or don't feel confident in speaking to the police directly. So you can come somewhere like this and speak to someone and make a report here. It's your choice about whether or not you forward your contact details to the police, but naturally if you don't forward your contact details to the police, we might have a record that something's happened, but we won't be able to investigate the incident. There's a list there, so we'll circulate the presentation. The link on the bottom will take you to the full list across Cleveland of where all the third-party reporting centres are. And the other thing I would mention, that some people won't be confident in speaking English, but we've catered for that. So if you're not confident in speaking English, then you can go to a third-party reporting centre. You can call 101, and when the operator answers, you can give the language that you would like to speak in. We've got access to something called language lines, so the call takers can access interpreters. So it'll take a bit of sorting out to get get right, but we'll get the interpreter for the right language on the phone so you can tell us what you want to report. Similarly, you can attend a police station, and the police station, you know, we can access language line at the police station, and we can take your report through that way. Or you can speak to somebody in the community that you trust, you know, and ask them to come forward and do it on your behalf. And the Cleveland Police website has a load of accessibility settings, and on that, you know, you can pick the flag of sort of the country or the language that you want to communicate in, and that gives you options to report through that way. We know we aren't perfect, and these are quotes of times when we haven't done it right. You know, and that sometimes comes out of lack of awareness, sometimes comes out of lack of care, sometimes comes out of officers being busy, but bottom line is it's unacceptable. You know, but we've seen some experiences, and generally, you know, the focus groups we've held and the feedback we've had from victims of hate crime, the scrutiny panels, it's around the same sorts of things that officers didn't really listen, didn't take time to understand what was going on, didn't provide clear expectations about what would happen next, or didn't keep the promises around keeping in touch and letting people know what happened. But, and I'll come on to things like scrutiny panels in the end. That's why we've spent a lot of work trying to work with communities, with victims of hate crime, you know, to try and understand about the experiences of people who report things to the police, so we can try and make things better. So some of this has come out of, you know, a series of scrutiny panels that we've held, and we would encourage all of you to get involved, you know, in some of those scrutiny panels and be part of helping us understand where we get it wrong and understand how we can get it right. You know, and we've got examples of people that actually started off on the first page and ended up on this page because we've managed to put the wheel back on and get things right and deliver a really, really good service to the public. We're also investing in trying to get it better as well. So with the assistance of the Police and Crime Commissioner, Mr Coppinger, we've invested in school liaison officers. We've invested in community cohesion coordinator and a refugee and asylum seeker coordinator. We're trying to change the way that we work through an Everyone Matters programme, you know, and then we're trying to engage with communities to try and give communities a voice about how they're policed. So things like scrutiny panels, things like the independent advisory groups that we've got, things like victim callbacks. We do satisfaction monitoring. We call people back and find out how the service was, and we collect data around satisfaction. We do that around hate crime satisfaction specifically. We've also got a Victims First scheme whereby it's not just about taking a report of a crime. When we come and take a report of a crime or an incident, we also sit down with somebody and try and understand the context and the overall vulnerability to that person. So we might ask people questions like, well, how often this is happening? How is this making you feel? What do you think is causing this? What's behind this? You know, what do you know about the offender, and why do you think they're doing what they're doing? You know, which means that actually we assess not just what type of crime or what type of incident it is, but we also assess the impact of what's happening on the victim, and we can assess the levels of risk around that and deliver a higher service to people, regardless of crime type, who are really, really suffering as a result of it. And we've got a victim care and advice service, so whenever you report a crime, then you'll be referred to the victim care and advice service and given the opportunity for particular support bespoke to your needs. So Phil is sat here. Phil has done an awful lot of work. He's the inspector in our Communities and Partnerships department, and Brian, who was here earlier, he works with Phil. So Phil, he's got quite a big department, but probably crucially for you, he's got school liaison officers that work with schools, and particularly schools in vulnerable areas, trying to raise awareness of sort of key issues for us like antisocial behaviour and knife crime awareness, but also just building relationships between the police and local communities. Hate crime investigators, so we've got some dedicated hate crime investigators. We've acknowledged that actually, you know, some of the investigation work done by some of the officers, those officers dealing with 637 incidents a day, some of that wasn't as good as it could be. So actually we've got higher skilled people that are doing hate crime investigator, and every morning they look at the hate crime that's taken place and they look at taking on the ones that are most impacted. And we've got people, community occasion coordinator, refugee and asylum seeker coordinator, out to recruitment again because we were so successful the first time that Beauty Tumour, she's moved on to another role. She was brilliant, and sort of Laura as well. Laura's moved on, so we're out to advert to get those roles back in. But they've already shown the value that they can bring, and we're really committed to keeping that for the future. In terms of good news stories, a few pictures here, a newspaper headline at the top. So, the vile racist jail for 20 months. That was as a result of a Facebook comment inciting racial hatred. And I think at the time that was the highest sentence ever for a Facebook comment inciting racial hatred. It was our hate crime investigators that achieved that sentence. And actually, since they started, our hate crime investigators have had over 100 charges for hate crime, which is phenomenal. We've got a picture of the school liaison officers that are working with Freddie Natcher School in Norton. They're also working, I think, at school in Newport and North Ormsby, and they're running mini police pilots. So they're working with the schools and working with the children and engaging children in the police, try and build confidence in us and try and sort of break down barriers. And we've got Celine as well. So Celine has been on Sky News talking about her experience as a victim of hate crime. And encouraging people to come forward, and that's available on the PCC's website. I've been told to hurry up now. So Everyone Matters. Everyone Matters is about changing attitudes within the police service. So we are delivering a whole range of community and cultural awareness sessions, to raise officers' awareness of, the perspectives and the lives of people who come from different cultures. We've got mentoring schemes, so if people want to join the police, there's ways in which we can get people mentors to help them through that process. We've got unconscious bias training as well, helping people to understand that actually we tend to judge people from our own standpoint, and that sometimes means that we make bad decisions, and we need to be aware of that and make sure that we remove the ways in which we do that. So what to do if you're not happy? There's a range of things you can do if you're not happy. If you're not happy with about an investigation, so it might be you're not happy that the investigation was good enough, or it might be that the police officer came to you and said, we can't take it any further, there's no evidence to take it any further. There's things you can do about that. First of all, there is the Victims Code of Practice, the Code of Practice for Victims of Crime. That gives you your rights as a victim, and you are entitled to challenge us as a police force if we haven't met the Victims Code of Practice for Victims of Crime. You've also got a right of review, whether it's a police decision or a CPS decision. If you're not happy with the decision, potentially not to prosecute somebody, you can review that. And then there's other things as well. If it's about somebody said they get back to you and they didn't, then you can phone the officer up and say, why didn't you get back to me? You can phone the officer's supervisor. If you want advice about what it is that you're not happy about, the Communities and Partnerships Department can advise whether or not that's a simple case of they'll put a phone call into someone and get something put right, whether or not it's a Victims Code of Practice issue, whether or not it's a complaint against police. You can make a complaint against police. You can do that either directly to us or you can do it to the Independent Office for Police Complaints. And there's a variety of ways in which you can do that, but basically, if you think a police officer is being disrespectful, discriminatory, isn't doing their job properly, then you're entitled to make a complaint against the police, and that will be investigated impartially. How to do that? If you go on our website, this is what it looks like. It'll take you through what you can complain about, when, how, where. And also, there's an accessibility button it's got a little flags icon, and that'll take you to sort of how to make a complaint in the language of your choice. Very quickly about who works for us. We've got different roles within Cleveland Police. What we're not happy about really is actually we are not representative of our communities. We've got a very low proportion of black, Asian and minority ethnic officers. And actually it's important for us as a police to have a police force that is representative of the community. So we would like to encourage more black, Asian and minority ethnic officers to join the police. And there's some recruitment leaflets at the front. There's some advice on where to get advice around police careers. So if you've got concerns about it or you've never thought about it, please have a look into it. And by all means, you can phone Communities and Partnerships Department about it. You can phone the recruitment team about it. You can have a look on the website, you know, but actually, it's a virtuous circle. If we start representing the communities that we serve, then first of all, police officers, if we're a more diverse organisation, police officers will get more diverse thinking because they'll be exposed to more different viewpoints. Similarly, if members of the community, members join the police, then actually the community get more understanding of the police because that feedback goes back to friends and family about what the police are about and what they're really like. So great things come out of diversity in recruitment. So please have a think about, can you join the police family as a police officer, as a police staff member, as a PCSO, as a volunteer, as a special, and all those details are available on our website. You can also help us through these other ways. Through the cultural awareness sessions, you know, we can have you in and we can give you an audience of, you know, anywhere between 10 and 200 officers, depending on who you want to speak to talk about your background, you know, your life, the way in which that's affected you and the way in which policing, you know, that can affect policing or the way in which you've been affected by the police. You know, just to build understanding amongst police officers about different perspectives and sort of different backgrounds. Scrutiny panels. You can join our scrutiny panels and be part of that feedback to us about when we've got it right and when we've got it wrong. We need more community champions. We've got key individual networks. So we've got networks of people that we phone up to say, all right, this has happened. You need to know this, you need to know that. Or, you know, can we get some feedback from the community about this issue or that issue? Independent advisory groups and strategic independent advisory groups. Those forums exist to give us advice, you know, to actually challenge us as a police force, to look at the way we do things, to look at our policy, to look at the things that we're doing, and give us advice from your perspective about whether or not we're doing that in the right way or not. You can come for a ride along. You can contact Phil's department if you want to just come out with the police. You can come and sit in our vans and come out with us for a few hours and see the way we do business. If you do that, we'd really like you to do that. If you do that, then we'd like you to tell us what you think afterwards about the way in which we've interacted with the public and whether or not we could do things a little bit better. And you can volunteer as well. You can come and join us as a volunteer, and that can help, you know, help us massively, you know, and build links with the community. So, Ola, I'm sorry I've gone more than 10 minutes, and I'm ready for questions.
Thank you very much. Can you give him a round of applause?